days, and I apologize for having to delay it. Appreciate everybody being here, especially we get this done before hopefully the weather gets bad. All right, to open it up, just disappointed, extremely disappointed. I hear the criticism, and it's warranted. It is. And a lot of that falls, on my shoulders. Look, 4 years 4 years we've not gone to the playoffs. We've not won a division since I've been here. Not won a playoff game since 2018. I've got to own all that. I do. And I'm not going to run from it, but I've definitely got to own it. And because it's real. It is the truth. I'm disappointed. I think y'all know me well enough to know that I'm extremely hard on myself. I care deeply about this organization, this city, want to do well for them, want to make them proud. And there is definitely a sense of guilt for not getting it done at this time. And I'm very hard-headed, very stubborn. I am. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not, because I am. And having to really self-evaluate how we build the team and how we move forward is extremely important. As I was all week, as I was sitting sick, feeling sorry for myself, but also self-reflecting on stuff we'll talk about and things we need to do differently. I came to some real truths. You got to be honest. You got to be able to look the person, yourself in the mirror, and tell yourself the truth on what's going on and how things are going. That's the only way you can really change and create real change. To our fans, I get it. I understand completely your frustration, and it's warranted. Look, it's a natural consequence when you don't win. It is. And we've got to be able to handle that. I've got to be able to handle that, but organizationally, we've got to be able to handle that. I'm still confident in my abilities. I'm still confident in people I have around me's abilities. Just at this point, we have not gotten it done. I'm grateful. I'm humbled, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity that Mr. Irsay and the family has given me to continue to work here in Indy and get this right, because I do want to get it right for the organization and for the city and for our fans. Saying all of that, floor is yours, and I will answer questions.
Chris, with whoever we got in place, you and Stan, I know our franchise, it always comes down to the quarterback. What, after 2 years, tells you that he's the guy?
Well, look, I don't think we can completely stamp it. We've seen some good things. We knew. Look, I like Anthony, and Anthony's done some really good things. All right, but there's been some potholes too. I think the number one thing. Let me track back a little bit here. We knew when we took him it was going to be a roller coaster. I don't think I did a very good job. I think I explained that it's going to take some time, but look, I got excited too about the talent and the wow plays, but now we need the consistency down after down. But the number one thing we have to figure out, and what Anthony's got to work through, is staying healthy. Like you've got to stay. He's got to be able to stay healthy, and that to me is probably the biggest question right now, because now we're going on 2 seasons in a row, where he's dealt with injuries. So that's the first thing. And then number 2, being consistent. Getting a consistent, down after down, play after play, consistency with him. And that takes time. I think the one thing you can see with look, we have zero patience as a league with quarterbacks. You're seeing it throughout the league where guys fail one place and now all of a sudden they're doing really well somewhere else. every quarterback's journey and developmental cycle is different. And, I wish I had a magic wand that could wave it and get them to the top of the peak right away, but that's not realistic. The good news is, even with the back, which we think will be fine, he's going to go into the offseason healthy, all right, which last season he didn't. He was rehabbing a lot. So that's going to give him a chance to work on some things going forward that we think will help going into next season. Now, saying all that, we can't beat our head against the wall. We've got to have competition at the position, just for the fact that competition makes everybody better, and then two, he's not proven he can play 17 games.
We'll come back to quarterback, but talk about your outlook and your philosophy, which you've talked about from day one. Did you go maybe too far in being too rigid with it?
Yeah, I did.
And so now what?
Good question. Here's where the hardest thing to do is evaluate your own team. I think this is across the board in the NFL. And look, I'm emotional and I care about our players. And I think sometimes I've let that bleed into how I built the team, all right? And coming off a year last year when we were 9-8, I thought we were playing really good football at the end of the season. Lost a tough game at the end of Houston, could have gone either way. And I'm thinking, okay, we're trending up. And instead of really creating competition throughout and throwing new blood into the locker room, new players into the locker room, and say, you know what, we're going to run it back. That was a mistake. It was. I think Buckner said it. Buckner had some comments that I thought were just excellent, where about complacency, about ego, and he's right. Buck is right. Man enough to say it, one, which I love, and two, his assessment was right, and that falls on me. It does. I bet on that we could bring players back, and they would be as upset about what happened at the end of the season last year that they'd want to rectify it. And at the end of the day, we were not able to. And I didn't do a good enough job creating enough competition throughout the roster and keep everybody on edge. Look, nothing's better. Look, at the end of the day, what we do, like, we do it in the public eye. There's a lot of money that people make in this profession, but Bill Parcells always talks about achievement. And at the end of the day, it's about competition and achievement. I mean, that's essentially what it boils down to. And I didn't create enough competition on the roster for it to want to achieve in the way it needed to achieve. There's got to be some stress. There has to be. There has to be real stress within that locker room, and an uncomfortability that if I don't play well enough, my ass will not be on the field playing. That directly falls on my shoulders. I mean, it's a lesson. It's a crappy lesson that I've learned. I do a pretty good job self-evaluating. Now, I'm hard-headed, and I will talk myself way back into, I was right. But no, this occurred. I was wrong.
Chris, building-wise, free agency draft, what needs to change if they need to?
I think we need to continue. We've had moments where we brought outside free agents in and done really good with it. We've got to be better about making sure we identify the right free agents that can help push this team to where it needs to go. Right now, we're not close. I'm going to make this really clear. We're like close as losing on the last play of the Super Bowl. That's close. Going 8-9, that's not close. No. I'm not saying we won't be closer when we get to the start of the season, but right now, sitting here today, we're an 8-9 football team. We got to own that, and we are not good enough. We're not. And we've got to be able to address and identify the right avenues to acquire the right players that can move the needle. And I have not done that in the last 4 years. I haven't.
Do you have, if you target whatever players, will the owner, has he always been willing still to give you the finances to get it done?
Yes, Mr. Irsay wants to win. He wants to win.
So saying that, will you commit today to signing multiple free agents who can bolster this team and play meaningful snaps?
It is January, what's today, the 11th? We have not formulated a plan. But what I'm gonna tell you is we're gonna be open to making sure we do what is best going forward to build a competitive roster. I'm not gonna sit here and say, all right, you wanna say, okay, let's go hog wild in free agency, all right? And then if I don't do it, well, you're doing the same thing. No, I'm not gonna pigeonhole myself there.
I'm not asking to hog wild. I mean, you didn't add a single starter, so that's kind of a baseline. Every team that's in the playoffs added at least one.
I screwed that up. You're right. I did.
Chris, was the culture of the team compromised this season? You had a lot of guys being very public about their unhappiness with teammates and commitment and professionalism.
All right, so I know there's been a lot been said about accountability. Let me tell you this. Shane does and I do believe this. He does a good job holding guys accountable. He does. If a guy did something, it was late, look, he handled it internally. Do I like all the things said in the media and not held internally? No, I don't. And the team heard my thoughts on that. I brought those players in the building. Okay, that directly falls on me, without question. And when you get, and the one thing I'll say is at least all but one put their name on it. Okay, the one that didn't put their name on it, that's even more damning on me, because that chicken shit wasn't man enough to put his name on it. That is losing football. Distractions are losing football. Look, I heard everything that's been said, especially about ex-players. Look, you cannot fool players. You can't do it. That's what, I don't agree with everything Pat said. I don't. But there's some truth to it. There is. You can't fool players. You can't do it. So I tell our team all the time, like, players in that locker room, they can BS the media, they can BS their family, but they cannot BS each other. And Pat was on good teams. Pat was a great player. Pat knows what it looks like. So he saw the cracks. And I guess the biggest issue, and our players know this because I've voiced it, how about solving the problem? Like, it's easy to voice the problem in public, but how about being part of solving the problem? That's what we need. That's probably the biggest miscalculation I made is, my vision since I've been here has been to take care of our own guys. I think you know that. And I want guys to be Colts for their entire career. And and look, I would tell you that all the guys we did, they played well and they deserved to get second contracts. But bringing them all back and expecting them to hold the line of accountability and standards, I either didn't make the message clear enough of what I expected from them, and that's where I have fell short. And that's where change is good, and bringing outside influence in that stands for the right stuff that we want to stand for needs to be done.
In August, you said that you believed in your plan and counted to the outside world, and you stick with it. But I asked you then, why should people believe that you're the right to change the franchise and go in the right direction? after a failed season,
Yep.
why should people believe that you can change?
Well, right now, anything I say, I don't blame. Look, I'm a fan too now. I told Mac this the other day. I said, look, I have baseball and basketball teams that I root for, and I'm on them hard all the time. So anything I sit up here and say right now, I don't blame them. Like, I don't blame them for being pissed and questioning. They should. They should question. It means they care, one, but that also means that they're not happy with our performance. But what I will tell them is that I'm very grateful that I'm given another opportunity to earn their trust back, because I need to do that. I need to earn their trust back. Anything I say, until we win, until we really win, and I'm not talking about just getting to the playoffs, I mean really win, really create something that, I don't want to just win. I mean, I want to win big. I mean, until we do that, I get it, and I understand. And I understand where the frustration comes from and why they would question, why they should question. But I'm still confident in my abilities. As hard at it as I am, we're gonna, and I've looked deeply at things I need to change and do. And the proof comes with your actions over time. And that's what we're gonna do.
Do you think you earned another opportunity, or were you just given an opportunity?
That's a loaded one. That's okay, I'll answer it though, James. The first 3 or 4 years, we did some really good things. We did. So I think it's proven. I will tell you this. I think when you can get 3 or 4 starters in a draft over time, and I think when you look at each draft, have we been perfect? No, but we've done pretty good work. Our process in the draft has been pretty good. Chap said it, the quarterback position has been the biggest albatross for us, getting that stability. But we've also done some good things in the past. So there's a partial earn there too. And like I said, I'm grateful that he's giving me another opportunity.
What were the conversations with Mr. Irsay? If you, I mean, to the extent you can talk about, I mean, he gave you another chance, but I'm sure he didn't just say that it came with no strings attached, right? What did he lay out for you?
Fix it. I mean, you know, Mr. Irsay, he wants to win.
Mm-hmm.
He does want to win, but he's also, you know, it's funny, you know, he's very knowledgeable about the game. So that's the one thing I really like about Jim, is that, like, when on game day, like, you can't BS him what he's watching. He'll have direct questions about what's going on because he's watching the same game. That's the one thing about the world we live in today. Like, the world of football really is a lot flatter than it was 10, 15 years ago. One, because everybody's got the tape. You know, back in the day, the football person would be able to sit there and say, you don't know what you're looking at. You're not watching the tape. Well, now we can't say that. And let's don't. I mean, look, we're all watching the same tape. So he was direct. Look, Chris, y'all need to win. Y'all need to get this thing going back in the right direction.
Going back to your quarterback, you guys made it clear when you came in here you wanted to get reps. I guess what do you, in your estimation, changed this season to where he needed to sit down? And I guess why do you think you guys kind of learned that mid-season this year as opposed to when you got here?
Hindsight's always 20/20. I'd done it. Somebody had called me to talk about this, you know, earlier, and I visited with him. I thought he was good. You know, in a perfect world, a young quarterback would sit. Just in a perfect world. We weren't living in a perfect world. You'd have a vet quarterback who's winning, and you could sit a guy for 2 or 3 years and let him play. But that was not a luxury that we were afforded. And I even told Shane that I wish, you know, looking back, I wish we would have sat him no matter what. All right, but we didn't. We played him. He got hurt. That set back his development. Oh, yes. Did he get to watch football? Yes, but it's different when you're preparing for it, preparing to play. And then you go into this year, and there just got to a point where I thought he was, and Shane really was the first one. I saw it, but he was drowning. He was. There was the poise, because I think he plays with really good poise most of the time, but I didn't feel the same as we went along, and then the Houston game, I didn't feel the same poise that I was feeling, and that meant, in my mind, one, mentally, it was really going fast for him, and he needed to take a bit of a step back. Now, of course, in your worlds, that means his career's over. I mean, that's just unfortunately the world we live in. Anytime a guy has to take a step back, it means he is done. That's what you're right.
Because that's what usually happens.
Yeah, it's exactly. So, but that was not our mindset at any point. I think as y'all reached out to me, I told y'all that. But we knew he needed to just take a step back. One, for just to get him to calm down a little bit. Two, also to prepare. Okay, all the little things you need to do in the building, everything you need to do. Let's take a reset and let's take a step back. Okay, and it was. I'll tell you, you know what? Am I going to sit here and say that I wish it would have lasted long? Yeah, there was a part of me that wished it would have lasted longer. But Joe had Joe came in, he had some struggles. We actually had we had a meeting with leadership, which Anthony's in. We had about an hour and a half meeting. It was probably one of the better ones I've been a part of, where there's some real honest conversations about, you know, where we were and what we needed to do, and about Anthony. And players, let it be known, like here are the expectations of what we expect from you, and what we need to get done. And so when we decided to move back to him, I thought we saw some really cool things. We did, and I was really exceptional things. You know, from the Jet game, who are a good defensive football team, taking us down and winning. I didn't think he played bad versus Detroit. I thought he played pretty good versus Detroit. We had, I think, 100 yards of offense taken back because of penalties. Played really well in the fourth quarter versus New England. Had some struggles early, but in the fourth quarter was able to put a 19-play drive together with 3 or 4 fourth down conversions at a 2-point to win it. So we saw some really, really good things over that stretch of time. So that was the reason why. I mean, that's a long answer, but that's why. I thought he needed to take a step back and breathe a little bit. I mean, he's still a 22-year-old young quarterback.
Shane mentioned that to Anthony, it was more so like preparation thing versus his play, so why he had to go to the bench or reset. He's a two-time captain. Why did he even get to the point where you had to bench him to hold him accountable to do these things that he probably should have been doing in the first place?
Do you have kids, James?
Oh no. They know because I joke about something.
He's very proud of that. He doesn't want that to change.
Sometimes with your kids, and look, he's a young man. You expect them to do things and they don't do them. Like, hey, clean your room. Okay? They don't do it. Well, and you're right, he was voted by his team a captain. And not doing the things consistently that needed to be done, that is correct. And it was part of the learning, okay? It's part of the growth and learning. Do you wish they all came in there and were perfect pros from the get-go? Absolutely you do. But that's not the case, you know? We gotta help them grow. And there's gonna be moments of failure. You know, failure, like I have really messed up in the past using that word so hard, because really, in reality, failure can be a good thing if you grow from it. If you really learn from it. If you really learn from the experience. Struggle and failure are good. They're not bad things if you learn and grow from them. And that's what, you know, we'll continue to hope that he continues to learn from those mistakes.
Chris, last year. Why do you think he wasn't as, I guess, receptive early on to that? Because this would make it clear. You bench a player, you know, top 5 pick or whatever. It's a very public thing to do to get his attention or everyone's attention. Why do you think it had to be at that point were there not any other intervenes or whatever before that to try to get him to understand what's at stake, his role, things like that? No,
he had good moments. It wasn't like it was just this constant, we're at the bottom of and he's making all these mistakes all the way. No. he had really good moments, and then he kind of took a step back. That happens. It does. It's life. People make mistakes. You wrote things that have not been perfect. You won't admit it, but you've done it. And to live in a world that you can't, all of a sudden you get branded because you make a mistake, and you do it on the grand stage, and we ostracize them for it. No.
When you say
Chris,
bring in competition, does that mean somebody younger who could be the starter going forward? Because obviously, you bring in Joe, his future is limited by age.
We'll bring who we think is, the best guy we can bring in. I'll say this about Joe Flacco: Joe can still play. I think you saw that. He had some. For a guy that's turning 40, still moves better than I anticipated. Still can throw the freaking football. And still can win games. In terms of the age and where it comes from, I'm not ready to stamp that right now. But look, we did it the year before with Gardner. We brought a guy in that played pretty good football for us. I thought Joe had his moments of playing really good football for us. I thought at the end he played really good. So I'm not ready to target, where it'll come from or who it'll be or what age they'll be. I don't know that yet.
You
Chris,
mentioned
there's
that.
a couple things on the roster. Pitt said he was gonna have an MRI. Will he need surgery, back surgery?
No, he will not need surgery. He will not need surgery. He's one tough dude, though. Pitt's the example of what you want. Here's a guy that all season had to battle through this, but sacrificed for the betterment of the team. And to win, you've got to sacrifice. I think that's what Buck was getting to. And he makes that point to where you've got to be willing to sacrifice something. You do. And it might be statistically, you might not catch as many balls to win, okay? We might not have, something statistically might have to go down a little bit for us to win. We have to figure out what it is, but you've got to be able to sacrifice it. Pitt did it. Pitt made a great sacrifice for the team this year, continued to fight and play through an injury.
Chris, one more, and then I'll shut up. What are you at liberty to say about Braden? It's sort of going forward.
That's a personal, I care deeply about Braden Smith. He's been a really good player for us, but he's going through a personal situation, and I don't want to get in depth with that one.
Okay.
This last year, defensively up here, you took the blame for it.
Yep.
Gus is gone, you're still here.
Yep. Look, that falls on all of us, and no doubt. Look, I bet on some young players coming through. Juju gets hurt. Dallas was coming off his injury, and at the end of the day, I did not give them enough. And we've got to, in totality, have to do better defensively. From a player acquisition standpoint, and from a play standpoint.
Do you expect the scheme or system to change?
What's that?
Do you expect the scheme or the system to change? You've always been a fan of the four-man front. Be honest with you, like a lot of the league, because it's such a heavy nickel league, ends up being a four-man front. Now you'll see some out of nickel getting into five-man stuff, but Shane and I are working through that. And look, I'm not going to comment on the coordinator of Shane's going to make the hire. Of course, I'll be involved, but we're working through that. We'll have some good candidates for the job. So.
Well, broadly, is there any value to being more aggressive on defense? Because you have been one very specific style for a long time.
I definitely think there is value. You got to be able to affect the quarterback.
Yeah,
you do.
Are there other coaches who will not be back?
Right now, the rest of them are here, and we'll let the new D coordinator kind of shift through what he wants to do with the staff.
You expect the offensive staff to be back?
As of right now, yeah.
Are they all under contract?
Yes. I see you. Yes.
Okay. Two. If you're going to change the way you do things, talent acquisition's a team, right? As you, Mr. Hurst, say, what are y'all going to do differently to bring in different kinds of players?
Last year, we didn't completely abstain from free agency. And we've actually done things in the past. So I just think we have to be we have to do a better job identifying the free agents that we want to sign, and then being able to close the deal on them. And that's up to me. It really is. It's not Mr. Irsay. He'll let me do what I need to do, and my staff. We have to be able to do that.
Okay, and the other question is, you've always had a long-term outlook, draft and build and all this. Given that you're entering the year you're entering, how patient can you be? In other words, are you gonna go for it this year in the draft and everywhere else, because you might not have another year of position?
I will not be. It's not in my nature to. I'm not going to hamstring this organization for the next 3 or 4 years. No, we will do what we need to do to build the best team we can build that can get this thing going forward. And if we think it's a situation where, okay, this is worth it, we would do it. But it's one where I'm not going to be irresponsible. I wouldn't do that.
Chris, are you surprised that you're getting 9th year?
Well, if you sat in my box, I mean, shoot, even year one, I'm pretty hard on myself. Y'all know that. I mean, I don't hide from it. I mean, I'm very hard on myself. And it's, I'm not gonna say I'm surprised, I'm gonna say I'm very grateful. I'm humbled by it, and I'm very grateful. I'm not gonna run. I don't run from the criticism. I know there's some comments because I was sick early this week, but I was gonna show up. I always do. I was gonna show up.
Chris, when you'll do your deeper player evals, what didn't work with AD this year? It looked like something was missing. I mean, great talent, Reggie
Yep.
as a kid.
Yeah.
What didn't work?
Just young. It's like, part of what didn't work is Alec Pierce has become who we thought Alex Pierce could be. I mean, look, there's one football and there's, you got 3 wideouts that Pittman, Downs, and Pierce that are really good players. Man, I can't say enough about Alec Pierce. Maybe
that's where the competition.
Yeah,
No.
that's a great case. Look, I'll tell you a story. After the draft, anytime you draft a player at a position, there's some uneasiness, and Alec felt it. He came to my office. He said, "Chris, what does this mean for me?" I said, "Nothing. Compete." And it's exactly what he did. He didn't bitch. He didn't complain. He didn't make excuses. He competed, and he is freaking good. He's exactly who we thought he was going to be, and I think there's more in there. I do. Alec Pierce is an excellent football player. That is part of it with AD. Now, AD, he, like any young player, there's going to be a maturation process with him. And he has some definitely really strong moments, but we need more consistent moments from him. But they're going to have to compete to get on the field now. I don't see us playing a lot of 4 wideout stuff, so you're going to have to really earn your way on it with that group.
You mentioned consistency with Anthony, which is obviously the most important thing, and his health. Can you improve accuracy to the degree that he needs to improve to be where he needs to get where he needs to go?
Yeah, I think he has moments of
Sure.
like really good accuracy. I'm gonna tell you what
Pittsburgh.
my thoughts on, like, I think his mind gets going so, like, a lot of times with quarterbacks, when they're unsure, you can look at their feet and they get really poppy and and nervous and fidgety.
All the time.
Like with Anthony, I think what happens is it happens in his brain, and then all of a sudden when the ball comes out, it's coming out on fire because he's just unleashing it, because he's thinking so much before the snap, during the snap, and that comes with time. I think he has some really good moments to where, look, at the end of the game versus New England, hard to argue against how the poise and calmness to throw those balls on very accurate throws. But look, you're in 2-minute offense. The offense is cut down. He knew exactly what he was doing, where he was going with the ball.
And so you saw a calmness there in those moments. So it can get better, yes, I do think it can get better.
You were big on the defensive line. Why did it fail to live up to expectations this year?
I thought they played pretty good. Now, did they have the amount of sacks? No, I know that's what everybody equates it to. I think our D line played pretty good. Now, look, there's times you can't get there when they're 6-7 man protecting, and then the ball's out fast. I mean, when the ball's coming out, sometimes that's how teams counteract you. I didn't think that our D line played bad.
So, sorry.
But I thought and I think it's a good group. I do.
So, if they're playing well, what's got to be fixed so that they can get home, and so the run defense isn't what it was?
And explosive plays for.
So, look, we did not tackle well this year. We didn't. I think we had the most missed tackles in the league. We've got to be a better tackling football team. We do. That's where a lot of the explosive came from when you look at it. A lot of missed tackles. We've got to be a better tackling football team.
Is tackling a talent issue?
What's that?
Is tackling a talent issue? I mean,
It can be.
They're grown men.
It can be. No, it can be. And it can be, getting bodies to the ball. And it's a combination of things. Angles. It's a combination of things. We were not a very good tackling team.
Chris, for those watching this and saying this general tone, you kind of falling on the sword that we've seen and we've heard it
Yep.
before. Why will this be different?
What I would tell you, I told you I'm hard-headed and stubborn, and I think y'all know me well. Look, I don't sit and blame others. That's just not. Now internally we'll have some discussions, but I just don't think it's productive for me to sit up here and just freaking go scorched earth and act. Look, I'm the one in charge of football. I'm the one who deserves to be blamed, but also I've learned some very hard lessons with my stubbornness of I had a vision of building something, and it needed to be a vision of building that could actually win and keep competition going in that locker room. And that is where I fell short. It is. I kick myself for taking a couple years to be so daggum stubborn. No, and when you look at, if you look back at our good seasons, 20, I mean, we trade for Buckner, we add Phillip Rivers, 21, I mean, even, it sucked how 21 ended. 21, we were a good football team. I know some of y'all would disagree. You don't go beat 4 or 5 playoff teams. We faltered at the end for some reasons, but we had made some moves in. We had signed Justin Hughes, we had signed the right people, and then I just got, for whatever reason, in my thick head, you know what? We're gonna really double down on our own guys, and
Because you did have success with free agents, I mean, Zanico and Justin and guys like that. And so, what dissuaded you from tapping into that?
some
a little more?
miscalculation. It was.
What's your
Do a
evaluation?
few more here.
What's your evaluation of the secondary?
We need to get better. We got to get better.
Both
Yeah.
corner and safety?
Yeah, we got to get better.
When it comes to Shane, obviously, do you think he has to grow in the sense of just speaking for the team throughout the season? Obviously, the two biggest things would be AR's benching in the back. He never explained really any of it until after, I guess, stuff kind of hit the fan later on.
Yeah, Shane and I have had discussions about that, in terms of just pure messaging. And look, it's always let's just, y'all are gonna find out anyways. Let's just be honest. And he wants to protect the players, which I respect, and he should. But there's certain times where, our messaging needs to be better. And part of my job is to help him do that.
Chris, you gave your exit interviews, however much you wanted. Did you give Ryan Kelly any idea, other than, let's take a couple of weeks?
I actually it was about 3:30 when he came in my office, and it was hitting me, and I told him we'd visit later in the week. But what I will tell you about Ryan, he's been an excellent Colt. We've not gone into any depth about where we're going, where he's going. We've not had any talks on that.
Have you had any discussions with Zaire about the podcast, arguing with Pat McAfee, whatever? He's a team captain, 5-year captain. How have you expressed whatever he's done, or just relay a message to him about what you want your leader to do for your team?
Yeah, I'll keep my discussions with Zaire between us, but what I will tell you is you can't win with distractions. Can't win with them. Can't create distractions.
Chris, you guys had some issues with Anthony, whatever those were in season that led to the benching. How will you hold him accountable when he's away from here?
What's that? You
You
gotta
had
be a
issues
little
with
louder.
Anthony in the benching in season when he's in your own building. How do you hold him accountable when he's not in your own building for the next X amount of months?
Yeah, there's, well, NFL rules. We can't actually hold his hand, and I we're at a point where we shouldn't, going forward, like we don't need to hold any hands. Like now it's time to, all right, you understand the standard. We've gone through the growing pains. You've made mistakes, okay? Now, much like myself, you got to learn from those mistakes and you got to grow from them. We know where he works. We know the people he works with, and we're in constant communication with him. But he's got to go to work, and I think he will.
Shane
Let's do
mentioned
2 more.
Culture is about winning, and obviously culture is like a buzzword in sports, but when it comes to this team, what would you say is your culture, considering you haven't won to the degree you want to win so far?
Culture's a buzzword. Today's compromises becomes tomorrow's standards. Okay? Today's compromises becomes tomorrow's standards. So anytime, and this is across the board, this is what my vision for the players has always been. And look, we've had, like, being a good guy and having good people, that's not a good culture. That doesn't mean it's a good culture. That doesn't mean it's a bad one, but it doesn't mean it's a good one. A good culture has some friction in it because there's some accountability within that challenges each other and never walks by a mistake. And we've got to get there. And that was not done this year. That's probably my biggest disappointment. That's it. You just nailed it. Because that's my job, to bring players in that will do that. That will have that mentality. It doesn't mean you got to be an asshole all the time, but when you know something's wrong, fix it. Fix it. Coaches can't be, like, you can't be there 24 hours a day in the locker room. Fix the problem. You understand. And look, anything you do can't get in the way of winning. Like, it can't. All the outside noise, we got enough things that try to tear you apart as a team. This is across the world of sports. Things try to tear you apart. The outside world, they're trying to tear you apart. But anything that gets in the way of winning, it's all you got to ask yourself, is this going to help us win? If the answer is no, then fix it. Fix it. Or don't do it.
Chris, you mentioned secondary to Joel,
Last one here.
where you need to get better. Where else specifically do you guys need to improve?
As always, I do think at the end of the year, the offensive line ended up playing better. We had some young guys have to play, when losing Will Fries when we lost him, that was a big loss. We had to roll Tucker in there probably sooner than he was ready for. Having Matt have to play both left and right tackle, we need to make sure that we've got the right talent level. I'm pleased with how these young guys came along, but we got to make sure we have enough depth there, always on the front, and making sure that we have enough competition through every position to where if they're not playing well enough, no matter the stature or status, they go to the bench and somebody else goes in the game.
Tight ends just didn't, what happened there, do you think?
Y'all asked me this question earlier, and look, we didn't get enough production from them. And I will say this, they did a very good job blocking in the run game. They're excellent blockers, but
our inability to control the middle of the field, which we've got to be able to do, I've got to be able to give Shane and them, a guy that can really control the middle of the field that teams have to account for and defend. I just haven't been able to do that. That's not a slight against our guys. They're good football players, but really having a receiving target that the defense has to prepare for, you'd like to be able to find and get.
One last one for you. Why do you think the team hasn't been able to win some of these must-win games the last few years? I know players mentioned like the Vegas game, Jaguars game, this year obviously, Denver, the Giants game. Why that hasn't happened?
It goes back to 20. So like I would tell you, like in 18, we go to Tennessee and win to get in and go win a playoff game. In 20, we beat Jacksonville to get in, lose a tight game to Buffalo that still sticks with me. But 21, we got to win 1 and 2. We lose them. Okay, 22 was a disaster. 23, game could have gone either way. Didn't finish it. This year, even this year, like Denver. That's what we got to figure out. All right, that how do we finish these things out? Crunch time in big games, everything you do, Matt. Like you don't lose a game at the end usually because of the moment. No, usually it's an add-up, especially like the Giant. Like the Giant game was just a freaking disaster. I mean, but in those big moments, everything comes to light. Everything comes to light. And we have not stood up and answered the bell in those moments right now. And ultimately, I got to figure out what we're doing wrong from a team building standpoint to get us over the hump. Having Andrew and Phillip, without question, helped in 18 and 20 get over the hump. But even if you look back in 20, it was Jonathan. I mean, like Taylor got hot at the end, and I think he rushed for 250 against Jacksonville in that last game, to get us over the hump that game. So there's ways to win. There's a ways to win, and we got to figure out why. And I know this toughness. When you have enough tough guys, they usually battle through and fight and get it done. And ultimately, I've got to fill a team with more of them.
Chris, you mentioned those hard truths when you were sick earlier in the week. What were those hard truths when you sat there and you self-reflected? What did you come up with?
I think I've explained it here pretty clearly in terms of the roster and bringing everybody back. How that was a mistake. That created a complacency within. That there was almost that's what Buck was talking about. There was an entitlement that, you know what, I'm back, I deserve to be back, which yes you did. But there's also an expectation and a standard that you have to uphold. And they get frustrated with me sometimes, but when for much that's given, more is expected. That's the truth. And when you're on your second, third contract, damn right, there's more expected of you. To lead, to perform, all that is real. And ultimately, what I've done is created an atmosphere that wasn't competitive enough. Wasn't. Of course, the coaches, but look, at the end of the day, the locker room have to drive this thing, man. Their competitive will and spirit has to help drive this thing. We can push it along, damn right. Hold the standards and hold them accountable. But those are the things I came up with. Those are real.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Sure.